Okay, welcome back to the Founders Table. This is where we sit down with leaders who are shaping industries and redefining what it means to build lasting businesses. Today, I'm joined by Danny Horboychuk, president of the Brothers That Just Do Gutters Franchise Corporation. It's a mouthful. A national home service brand with over 400 territories across the U.S. Danny's story is incredible from starting his career as a professional musician and entrepreneur to becoming a leader in one of the fastest growing home improvement networks in the country. Under his leadership, the brothers that just do gutters has become, well, not just known for gutters, but for reinventing what contract service can look like, which is professionalism, trustworthy, and people first. So, Danny, I'm very excited to have you on and have a great conversation. The first question I really have is I like to start kind of your background in leadership. So, you started out as a professional musician beforehand, which I think is super sick. But before becoming a leader in one of the fastest growing franchises, what was that transition like? And what lessons carried over from music into leadership?
Sure, that was a great question. And quite honestly, I didn't notice the parallels
Hmm.
from what I'd done prior to the lessons learned and how they carried over to where I'm at now. Until fairly recently, you start kind of, I'm at the age where I'm looking back at a lot of stuff now too. The transition was good. I mean, when I came out of music, I spent the majority of my life in it, and my wife and I had gotten to the point where we decided to have children, and I would be gone away from home for 3 or 4 months at a time on the road, so it wasn't a lifestyle that I was comfortable with reintroducing myself to my child quarterly.
Yeah, fair.
When I made the decision, that was the hardest part of all of this, is making that decision to step away from something I'd been so passionate about for my entire life. But once I made the move, I never looked back. And the transition wasn't really as hard as you think it would be, and that's due to the people that I was surrounded by. Specifically, when I first got out of music, I took a job. The first thing I could find, I just needed to get away from
Hmm.
what I was doing to break free and clear my head. And I ran a supply yard for a company and a municipal cleanup company for them for the first 10 years or so. And I was looking for more, and I had fallen back kind of on my music roots. I was teaching guitar lessons out of a private studio at my home, and
Hmm.
Ken Parsons, the founder of Brothers Gutters, he was bringing his son to me for guitar lessons, and we got talking quite a bit. And Ken was slowly recruiting me, and I didn't realize it, you know. So we would talk all the time, and we would both attend home shows because I would run a home show for the supply company I was working with, and Brothers Gutters was there, and I saw their setup. I'm like, man, these guys really got it together. I had no idea they were a franchise at that point or franchising.
Hmm.
So the transition really started happening on the business side when I started with Ken and his brother Ryan, and they made the transition so comfortable and so easy because they invested so much into me, and they were so transparent on everything. And I think that's really what kind of defined the path I took, was because they laid it out clearly for me. They shared everything with me. They showed me every step of the way. One of the things that I love that you'll always hear from them and the company as a whole is you have to be replaceable to be promotable. You
Interesting.
know, well,
I
it
love
goes,
that.
yeah, it goes against where most people are comfortable though, because most people's thought is, if I am replaceable, I could be replaced.
Hmm.
Stop the thought there. But the idea being that if you want to get to that next level, you're prepping the person to fill the gap that you're about to leave. But on the other side, the person that you're replacing has done the same for you. So it's
Right.
this constant flow, and because of that, I really feel like they made the transition easy to to go from what I was doing to where I'm at now. And quite honestly, I mentioned earlier, looking back, um, I realized that even at an early age, I never really thought of myself as entrepreneurial,
Hmm.
but the music thing is essentially that. I
Yeah.
mean, at a young age, I decided this is what I'm going to do. I went against the normal system and put together a group of people and kind of attacked that world,
Yeah.
simply like a business. You are a business. You're promoting yourself. So it took years after that for me to get the clarity and realize it, because when you're doing it, it doesn't feel like that.
Right.
You know, it's one of those things, you're just doing what you have to do to get by,
Hmm.
and that's similar to a small business owner. You
Yeah.
just do what you have to do. So looking back now, I realize that there was a lot of lessons that I learned that I wasn't aware of, including, my start here was in sales, and I always say I had no sales background, but essentially as a musician, you're selling yourself every single night on that stage. And, I had to look back to realize that, and it set me up, that odd start set me up for where I am in a pretty good way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true. You sell yourself even in music, but just in day-to-day life. Like we sales is arguably I tell everybody, I'm like, if you pick up one quality skill from like your time here on earth, like sales, it's a sense
Yeah.
because it's like you can use it for any and everything, whatever direction you decide to go to, you can hone on sales. For you, I mean, you've worn so many hats in your journey, right? So from teaching to operations to sales, to franchise leadership, was there a moment where you realized that you're ready to like lead at like a national level?
It was never a focus. I can honestly say I didn't come into this company with this end goal in mind.
Hmm.
Came into this company because the company was amazing. The people were incredible. The mission, what we're doing, I got behind. I really truly enjoyed everything they were doing, and I love the support. And it offered me constant growth. So again, to go back, it was really never my end goal. I'm the type of person that I want to experience as much as I can. So even at an early age, I learned to say yes to everything. Even if I wasn't prepared for it, I will
Hmm.
make sure I'm prepared when I get in there, and I'll learn as much as I can through the course of it. But I found that I don't think there's anything I've done in my life that I can tell you that I walked into it saying I'm fully prepared for this. I'm the type that likes to learn as I go as well. I don't want to try to convince myself that I know everything I need to know for each of these positions I've been through. You
Hmm.
know, you're going to learn, and yes, I can learn from the people that were ahead of me, but my approach is going to be different. My insight's going to be different, and my attack is going to be different. So that's not to say you don't look and listen and learn, but again, I don't feel like I've ever been 100% prepared for any of the roles. You get in there, you listen, you learn, and you work with the team. And to me, that's the biggest part of it. It's none of this is me. This
Hmm.
is all us. You
Yeah.
know, every role I've been through from music through this, my journey with brothers, none of it's been solely on my shoulders. It's been a team that's done everything, and it's been a team that I've tried to help elevate at every level I've can and they have absolutely elevated me uh,
Hmm.
this whole time. So again, I truly believe from my start to where I am now, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, you
Yeah.
know. I want to have those people around me and I want to learn from them, but I also want them to be continuously learning too because I never want to outpace them either. I want them to
Yeah.
always be able to share back and forth, everybody has something to offer, it's a matter of really working with them to get the most from them and continue them on their journey and they will continue to help you on yours as well.
I love that. And the team stuff, which is definitely something I want to touch on a little bit later in the podcast. I'm a big believer that teams obviously build a corporation, right? Like they are, it's never on just one person. And bringing in the right people with the right mindset and supporting them through their growth and journey as well is super important just to see success in any company. But I definitely want to touch on that a little bit more as we go down. For people who I guess may not be familiar with the brothers, can you kind of go into who you guys are, who you serve, and then I guess you're like your ideal client base, how you guys kind of do things now.
Sure. So the brothers were founded by Ken Parsons, the older of the two brothers, who was a school teacher, and he had summers off, so he started working, with somebody on the summers early in his career doing gutters, and realized that he really enjoyed that, and he likes to joke that at that point he threw his degree in the gutter, and he's
That's
into
funny.
this, and pulled in Ryan. Ken's a big visionary. He thinks really big. Then Ryan, the younger brother, is the builder. He's the one that came in. He had a degree in fine arts, and when the whole .com thing blew up, he took a part-time job helping Ken out on the truck and realized very quickly that he needed to do other stuff to get off that truck. So he built him a website. He started building it, and then people would ask them all the time because they were on point. They had uniforms, the trucks were lettered, everything was clean. They were answering the calls when they were coming in, and people would start asking them, "Are you a franchise?" And they thought that was odd. So with Ken's big visionary mind, he's like, "We need to become a franchise." And Ryan's like, "You don't just do it that way." So it was up to Ryan to build the foundation off of Ken's dream, and the two of them together. It's been such an honor to be a part of that and be welcomed into that, to watch how that type of relationship works.
Hmm.
The visionary and the integrator, it's clearly defined, and it's been awesome to watch, even continuing from there, as now Ryan's become the CEO of Evive Brands, who we're under,
Hmm.
uh, him stretching more into that visionary goal. It's been great to watch, but the whole concept really came from meeting the customers where they want to be met. Some of the things we would hear early on was like, you're the only company that does this. You're the only company that does that. So Ryan and Ken both really put a focus on what those onlys were, and building our systems around that. If our customers are telling us we're the only one that answer the phone, we better make sure we have live agents answering the phone whenever they call. If they're telling us we're the only ones that call ahead of time or show up on time, we better make sure we continue doing that. So literally, our whole systems were built off of what our clients were telling us they enjoyed about us. And I've stressed to the salespeople when I was in that role, the sales manager role, always ask your clients, why did you choose us?
Hmm.
Somebody taught me that early on. It was very surprising. I was thinking it's going to be because of this. It's going to be because of, like, all the big things, like our CRM or this and that. And it was things like you showed up or you answered the phone, you
Yeah.
called in advance, things like that. So it really reinventing contractor services is really about that. It's building that basic platform and expanding from there. And that's kind of what this company has been excellent at doing, meeting the clients where they want to be met.
Love that. And it's like there's one thing specifically that I want to touch on where a lot of companies and a lot of people, whether a small business owner or a large business owner, they do this a lot where they're always complicating the process on what they need to improve and fix. And it goes back to as simple as just why is someone even hiring you in the first place? And
Yeah.
double down on those things. I want to say too there, I got this image, or it's this correlation with the brothers when you talked about a visionary and an integrator. For some reason, I immediately correlated it to like the Walt Disney brothers because
Yeah.
they were similar. It's a similar story, obviously.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I'm like, that's in my head. I'm like, man, there's something with brothers when they're just so opposite in that sense. Like one's a visionary, one's an integrator. I'm like, man, some of the best businesses are just built from that.
Yeah.
So I had
Yep.
that correlation, and it was a just very similar direction in itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going back to my music days, you look at bands like Van Halen, the same thing, the two brothers, one of them really was that visionary and the other
Yeah,
was support it and help grow it. And both roles are extremely vital because without one, the other would have never gotten to where they've gotten to.
yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a good correlation for just business because you don't have to be brothers, but just business partners in general. If you have a visionary and integrate someone to really like push the idea of the company, while someone is can actually help integrate everything and
Yeah.
make it a reality, you can do unbelievable things. With the company's mission, right? Reinvent contractor service. What does that mean to you? How do you make sure it stays a part of the culture, especially as the company scales?
Yeah, quite honestly, that was my biggest fear in the very beginning when I started here. There was a time when the whole franchise thing was still very, very young. There was a couple pilots and one or two early locations when I started.
Hmm.
So it wasn't really on my radar. I was really focused on the sales role I was in the Hudson Valley location, which was the corporately owned location. And then I remember the guy starting to talk about the whole franchise thing, and there was a franchise sales agent involved, and quite honestly, it scared the heck out of me. I'm like, we have something incredible here. Why would you go and ruin it? That was
Hmm.
my first thought. You're going to invite a whole bunch of strangers into our house. This is not a good idea. And so it was terrifying to me. But what I found out very quickly, because in the very beginning, I was involved in sales training. I would train the salespeople, or as we call them, solutionists
Hmm.
from all different locations. They would
Yeah, I
come to
love that. I love that terminology there.
solutionists. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's what we do. We offer solutions.
right.
So they would come in, I would train them. And what I found out very, very quickly was this company attracts like-minded people, small business in general, but for some reason this company very much so. But you look at the backgrounds and you're like, man, in what other world would these people be connected and get along so well, from
Mhm.
such diverse backgrounds? But I learned very quickly that by inviting all these strangers into our house, it made our house better every single time because somebody's bringing something in, a new insight, whatever it is, we've continued to grow with that. So that's what reinventing contractor services to me is being aware of the change in the room and
Mhm.
follow and making sure that we're adapting to it. Like I said earlier, meeting the clients where they need to be met. A lot's changed since I've been here. The whole COVID era really impacted business dramatically.
Sure.
Uh, we did very well through that era. We pivoted very quickly
Hmm.
and adapted very quickly, and it worked very well for us. But I guess my point is that really, again, going back to reinventing contractor service, you can't set that once and stand next to it for the next 20 years of your business or 30 years of your business life because that reinvention is going to change.
Right.
As you grow, people will watch that and start to take pieces of that, and they grow.
Hmm.
The whole idea is to stay ahead of the curve, and the intention is to raise up the industry, not
Right.
just the end.
I love
Because
that.
if you can pull the whole industry up, it's better for everyone.
Right. And on that, it's like I feel like comparing businesses from back in the day versus businesses to today, businesses always had to be able to adapt and innovate, right? So
Yeah,
this is more like a spontaneous question, but nowadays I feel like businesses have to innovate and adapt even quicker with AI
absolutely.
technology versus when they had to do it in the past.
Yeah, the speed of life has gotten so fast. I mean,
Hmm.
you can wake up in the morning and order something on Amazon and you'll have it that afternoon. You
Yeah,
know, what that's done is, historically we've looked back at timelines and we're like, all right, it's safe to be about a 2 week window before an estimate or 2 weeks before you do the job. People's expectations have changed dramatically. Specifically the generation that's getting into the home buyer age now, they've kind of grown up through this and seen that. But even the older generation, again, they're using Amazon, they're using these things. So it's it's scary that it's getting to the point where it's almost they're looking for instant gratification,
yep,
so looking for something quick. And they understand that these things take time. You got to order the materials and stuff, but the windows that we used to think were acceptable, I think are much too long now. I think we really need to focus on, another cliche, but speed to lead, really getting to that job quickly,
sure.
and taking care of it faster.
I'm curious on because a lot of contractor-based industries struggle with consistency as they grow, most of them.
Mhm.
So, what do you think that the Brothers has done differently that allowed it to maintain quality across so many locations? Is it just the people that have been brought in?
It is. It's the people's brought in, and don't get me wrong. Every company struggles.
Sure.
You all have struggles with that, but we monitor it. We have a team of FBCs that are fantastic. They're meeting with the owners regularly. I meet with each FBC weekly to talk about who they spoke with that week and what's going on there. We
Interesting.
monitor the reviews. We have KPIs around the amount of reviews that they get as well as the rating, and it's never allowed to drop below a 4.7 out of 5.
Wow.
So if anything happens, the FBC's on the phone, and they're working with those clients. But quite honestly, as long as you're doing the right thing for the customer, you're going to get those high ratings, those high reviews, because their biggest fear is that the fear of abandonment. They want to know that if something happens and they're not happy with something, that you're there to fix it. As
Right.
soon as soon as you show that, some of my best reviews were from clients where the job may not have gone well out of the gate. There might have been an issue, but the fact that we showed up repeatedly till we got it to where they were happy and never turned our back from them, they've become some of our biggest raving fans at that point.
Love that. And that makes a lot of sense too. And what you say is so true, just the fear of not being abandoned at the end of the day. Because if you think about it too, every business is always a stranger to your customer, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's like you're trusting the stranger with whatever it is you're bringing them in to do. So it's like, all right, is this guy gonna, mess me up, or is he gonna be there and actually help out?
Yeah, and we put a lot of focus on community involvement because you said it right there. Every business is essentially a stranger coming in. We don't want to be that stranger.
Hmm.
Understand that you're likely not going to be using us once a year.
Hmm.
Some gutter jobs, you'll do a gutter job, you may never see that homeowner again,
Hmm.
if they don't ever need more work done or anything. But we want to be involved in the community so they're aware that we're there,
Yeah.
because again, we're not a luxury item, we're not a boutique item, we're not a want, we're a need.
Hmm.
So until you need us, a lot of people aren't aware that we're there.
Yeah.
But if you can get involved in your community, do events, do different things like that, sponsor little league teams, and get that name out there and get familiar, people are aware that. So when they do need you, they've seen you around. They know you're there. They know you're consistent. And they know you're not going anywhere. So it's important to make sure you're a part of that.
And that's always, I love that 'cause it's always top of mind. I always go back to there's a I forget who I heard it from, but the big franchises like McDonald's and whatnot, they always do commercials and whatnot, not because they have to, but it's solely because they can stay top of mind as well, mixed in with other things they do as well. And that's such a strong like strategy in itself. Do you
Yeah.
guys only? I guess this is more spontaneous one. Do you guys when it comes to staying top of mind, are there certain channels you focus on the most to try and do that, or do you kind of give equal priority?
It's always evolving. We're kind of monitoring that. I mean, social media has been huge.
Hmm.
People really live on that. So we've done some TV placement ads, things like that before, but really social media is kind of where most people congregate.
Sure.
So being there and, as well as obviously Google and stuff like that, staying in front of them there. But that's constantly moving too, You can't set it and forget it with anything anymore. You
Nope.
really monitor it in real time and see where the trends are moving back and forth and make sure you're staying in front of them there. But again, the most core to me, the most core spot is community.
Right.
In your local community, you have the best shot of getting in front of the most people that you're going to impact. You
Hmm.
can be on social media and you might grab a handful of people from your town. You go do one touch a truck event at a school or a town carnival or something like that. You are now hitting hundreds or thousands of people from your market.
Right.
So it really getting that local touch has a much bigger impact. And I think people realize, I think they rely too much on the digital side of things. But again, you're getting such a small slice of your actual market that way.
Right. No, and I mean that makes sense, especially because when you go more in person, you're hitting more authenticity, right? So it's more authentic. People are there. I feel like I guess touching on something earlier with you mentioned people get used to the speed of things, right? From social media. And I think a lot of business owners when they come in, the first thing they do is I got to run paid ads to try and get traffic and clientele in. And it's
Yeah.
good. I think you can build up a solid base from it. And I think there's a more long-term strategy that involves being more involved, depending on the business, but more involved with your community that will ultimately give you that long-term growth trajectory.
100%. I mean, it was one thing when we started doing this years ago, and paid ads were a lot different then. There wasn't as much competition on it.
Yeah.
There's so much noise out there right now that it's hard to get ahead of the noise. It's hard to cut through. So again, your biggest impact to me is your local community. You have a defined area there of people that are within your service area. When you hit the internet, I mean, you're not getting to all those people, and it goes back to top of mind. Our logo and our brand name are intentional. They're fun. They're easy to remember. That people recognize the cartoon characters. So getting that in front of people when they don't need it, giving them something memorable, something tangible to hang on to, so that when they do need it, it comes back to them quickly.
Right. Makes sense. So I want to go into like franchise growth and like training systems, things like that. You've led, franchise operations through major expansion. Um, what have been some of the, I guess, key systems or frameworks that have helped maintain alignment in the business as you've scaled nationwide?
Just making sure we're consistent, and reevaluating systems after people pass through them, talking to them about it. What was a roadblock? What was kind of tough to get past? What did you find easy? So really just making sure you have the right people in the right seats and they're paying attention.
Mm,
It's quite easy to build out a system and just run people through it, run people through it, run people through it, and just assume everything's good and everything's fine if you're not paying attention. but
Right.
you want to you want to watch closely, you want to listen, take notes, and look for areas of friction and see where you can make things easier. We have tried to, as Ryan puts it, remove every hat we can from a business owner. There's a saying where you wear all the hats. Okay, so
Right.
what can we do to remove all those hats so you can focus on the core of running your business?
Right.
So having systems in place it's great. Everybody has systems, but how many people are truly utilizing them, truly following them,
Sure.
and adapting them and growing them? Like you said, it's when you hit volumes like that coming through, it's easy to just assume everything's fine. We added this year alone 79 new territories. You know,
Wow.
by doing that, you could very well get complacent and just, yeah, they launched, so everything must be fine. But we have a team here, at our Portco that is really pushing us as well. Like, hey, how can we make that better? If somebody just came in off the street and has never done this before, could they get through our onboarding?
Right.
Is it clear? And, so they challenge us as well. And, we just recently did a massive overhaul of our onboarding. We looked at it and kind of adapted it and changed it. Granted, it'd been there for a couple years now, and we've made updates as we went. But as you continue to do that and you keep adding stuff and just updating stuff, it's like you're putting more and more band-aids on something when really at the end of the day, you should stop, restructure the whole thing, start over, start fresh so you can, adapt to what people are looking for and how things are changing.
Right.
You know, System-wise, especially with technology is changing daily. AI has really changed the game. So that's important too, because if you're not keeping current with what's going on out there, you could literally start the year off as the industry leader, due to your technology and what you're offering. And by the end of the year, you could be back and forth or fifth place.
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention, have to make sure your systems are clean, they're being utilized properly, and it sets the tone for the relationship with the franchisee long term.
Right.
If you're going through in the beginning and you're not following the systems the way they should be, they're going to see that. And what are they going to do? To them,
Right.
it's unacceptable. So, it's all about systems and procedure. That's what built this. So make sure you're utilizing them, they're functioning properly, and the franchisee knows how to use them too.
On like the topic of like the franchisee, what do you feel is the most common challenge, I guess, for new franchise owners coming in? And I was gonna ask how do you support them through it, but you kind of already answered that piece of it.
I think the biggest challenge is we've had a lot of corporate America getting out of that lifestyle, and a lot of them haven't led teams like this before. So I think a lot of the challenges are them learning how to be the leader they need to be, and supporting them in that. Again, it sounds cliche, but we say it all the time because I get asked the same question weekly on leadership calls with our FSO.
Hmm.
Where potential franchisees are like, well, what do the best franchisees do, and what do the worst ones not do? And it's cliche, but they follow the system.
Yeah.
You know, you don't join a franchise to reinvent the wheel. You join a franchise because you don't want to start at ground zero. So I've never understood, I've seen it in other systems as well where people come in and, they buck the system that, well, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. Well, then why didn't you just go buy a truck and do it on your own? You
Yeah.
know,
That's very interesting.
yeah, these systems are built for a reason. They're updated based off of what we hear. Follow the system, get your feet under you, get it stable. Then we'll discuss what you saw, what you experienced, like we said earlier, and then we review the system to see if we can make updates from there. But really, I mean, the biggest thing and where we see issues are when people try to change the system, like, well, I used to do it this way. Okay, let's do it the way we do it that we know works, and then we can see if we can integrate that later on. But especially in that early stage of your business, you don't want to be experimenting. You know,
Hmm.
use what's tried and true, push through with that. We can always come back and revisit it, but really follow the system. And one of the other things too is you're joining a franchise.
Right.
Don't be a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Don't be here and try to sit in a corner and I could do it better my way. There's a whole system of people out there. There is not a single challenge that you're going to come up against that not half a dozen, a dozen others have had the exact same issue and
Yeah.
figured how to get around it. Why wouldn't you lean on the strength of the team to get through
Right.
those things quicker? You
Right.
know, I think
There-
it's pride. Sometimes people are like, oh, I want to figure it out. Don't, you
yeah.
know. Why
I
waste time?
I completely agree with it. There's a saying I had heard a while back, and this is related less into franchising, but it actually does kind of correlate more on like just people who are just starting businesses in different niches or industries and whatnot. And it's like there's a few different ways you can get to the top of the mountain, right? Everyone wants to do the trek. Everyone wants to say, I did the trek and climbed up to the top of the mountain. But it's way, if you can do this, get to the same place with less time, more efficiency, just take the ski slope. You'll still
Yeah,
get there, you know? And it's like you go through and you learn from everybody else who has gone through and done it yourself or done the exact same thing or similar things. You don't have to put yourself through things. Everyone has this mindset that with entrepreneurship and business owner that you have to, and business is tough. It's very tough. So it's like in reality, you're not trying to make it tougher for yourself. You're just trying to get to the end goal or complete that journey that you wanted to do. So I completely agree. I don't know where it kind of shifted in the sense because that is a huge mindset with people. They always want to go through the toughest thing possible, and I'm not sure why either.
yeah, no, it makes me scratch my head, but fortunately, we don't see it as much as we used to.
Mhm.
In the beginning, we had some that would do that, but we've also built a system now that's very accessible, and very open. We run weekly town halls. All of our franchisees know that every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, I'm going to have the whole team on there with me, and we're an open book. We'll give you some updates on what we're working on, what we're seeing across all the different departments, and then it's 40 minutes, 45 minutes of just open time for Q&A. So plus we have regionally franchisee-led regional peer groups.
Okay.
So they're dealing with their region with a peer from their region. Our FBCs have regular meetings with them. Our quarterly vision events. We have a lot of communication there. So we foster a lot of communication between the franchisees as well to really kind of offset that. And they do lean on each other a lot. We have an owner's Slack feed that you see all the time. They'll ask a question and the other owners jump on that. And, so just making
Wow.
sure that there's always somebody there to support somebody when they need it.
Love that. Support is so important too. I want to get to like the team side of stuff because with the home improvement industry, I know you guys rely heavily on like skilled labor.
Yeah.
So what is, especially for I'm curious on franchise owners too, like what does the hiring process look like across those like different locations and how do you consistently help them try to recruit or find talent in that sense?
Absolutely. So, I mean, from the moment they come in to confirmation day, C day, we're already talking to them about speak to your neighbors, your family members, your friends, and let everybody know what you're doing.
Hmm.
That's just going to expand your reach. Somebody's got a nephew, a cousin, a son, a neighbor who's looking for work, and he's got some carpentry experience. He's got experience in this. So again, it goes back to the communication, just really letting people know what you're looking for. It's
Hmm.
amazing how much will fall in your lap if you just let people know what you need.
Yeah.
you know, but be specific. Don't go, no, I'm about to start a gutter company. Oh, that's fantastic. And they walk away.
It's
I'm about to start a gutter company. Keep your ears open. If you know anybody that's got, any family members, friends, neighbors, cousins, anything that, they might be looking for work, I'd love to find some people to get them into the system and grow them.
hmm.
And that's really kind of what the system's about too. So finding people is one thing, but the big thing is retaining them.
Yeah.
In the trades, it's not uncommon to see these guys bounce around for a 50 cents an hour raise.
Hmm.
They'll go over here, they'll go over there. So they look at this as a stepping stone or a job. One of the things that Ken and Ryan did early on, and I know Ryan really, this is his baby, is we have something called the skills ladder. I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's proprietary, but
Sure.
it really changed the game for us. It's now led guys to looking at this as not a job, but a career. you know,
Okay.
Giving them a clear defined path on how to get to where they need to get to financially, you
Right.
know, and there's guys that have come in here at, young guys that are now in their early to mid 20s that are buying their first house already. They have, they're getting married, they're having children, they're secure, you know.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's
And
been wild. We hear all the time people tell us like, how do you find the perfect employee? Or, we'll have our confirmation days and they'll get to view an operational location and see the team and the support. And you'll hear the same thing like, man, if I could only get somebody like that guy, I'd do great. You don't understand what that guy looked like when he started here.
Right.
You know? And we tell them all the time, you're not going to find the perfect employee. To get the perfect employee, you have to make them, you have to build them,
Yeah.
you have to invest in them.
Yeah.
You have to find somebody that's willing to grow and accept the support and then invest in them and build them up and give them the opportunity. That's where the perfect employees come from. You're not going to look in Indeed or Craigslist and there's a shining star and you're going to hire that guy and that's the one and it's going to change
Right.
my life and my business. You know, as much as you want them to change your life and your business, they want you to change their life. So it's about investing in them and building them up as a person, and the way to do that is what I think Ken and Ryan really nailed better than I've ever seen done before is the transparency, the knowledge, the learning, the training. They really double down and invest in these teams like I've never seen. And
Hmm.
it's shown. I mean, it's been outrageous to see the growth of the people through the system. I mean, we have people that started out here as installers, entry level installers that now own their own franchise.
It's wild.
Very successful franchisees. It started out on a truck, you
Right.
know. So it's
That's
been
crazy.
my
That's
own journey. I came in from like the entry level at the sales role, the bottom man on
it's
the
true.
totem
Yeah.
pole, and just if you're willing to learn, we're willing to invest in you.
Right. I feel like you're a testament to obviously that system in itself, and I'm sure guys coming in seeing the path that you've taken probably only adds extra fuel to the fire for them, knowing that look where you started and look where you're at now.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had a lot of stories of that where people have come through, and gone through the system. Gentleman that's actually not with the company anymore because he was promoted to brand president of one of the other brands under the Evive portfolio company.
Uh-huh.
He came through the
Crazy.
system, started out as an onboarder and worked through, got up to SVP of ops for Brothers, and then an opportunity opened up at one of our sister companies under the Portco, and now he's the brand president over there. So this
Amazing.
grows within itself. You're really about growing people.
And obviously the people make the business, and a lot of organizations it's very I feel like it's very rare to find an organization like what you guys have where you really invest a lot, and I mean like a lot, into the people, because some, and again, like how you said earlier, that's what people are looking for as well. And you find these organizations who they lead with that umbrella statement saying it's a family and culture, but then you realize there's not as much that goes into it when it comes to developing the careers. And
Yeah.
especially when you decide to promote into leadership, every company's dream idea is to promote from already within the
Yeah.
company. So, and what you guys have set up, or what the brothers have set up, and what you guys are using, it's really genius because you really are you're you're tackling the whole issue, but on a whole like longevity sense of view. It's not a short term issue. You're like, okay, how is this going to affect 10 years down the line when this person climbs up? So,
Yeah.
props to you guys. That is very, very impressive.
Thank you.
Um, you answered a couple of my questions as I was like looking over with it, because I wanted to go into like how turnover and churn look, but you kind of talked in that. I wanted to go into team coaching. You kind of talked to that. So you're just
I
you're
get,
you're
yeah, I get
running through these, Danny.
I get passionate about this. I really, it's I love it. Like you said, it's a home service, it's gutters, it's not a, a fad thing. It's not like
Hmm.
a want, it's a need, but
Hmm.
it's really, I mean, gutters are such a small part of what we do. We're really about people and systems and growing them,
Hmm.
so I truly love that side of it and love what that's all about. So I get very passionate and I tend to
I
ramble.
can tell. I can hear it in all your answers. Let me see what my other, because now I have to skip down a little bit. This we can go into this one a bit. So I mean, you talk a lot about creating a great place to work and everything. What are some of the ways I guess you guys try to bring that to life within the organization?
So just, the whole environment, again, like I said, COVID really kind of changed everything. The work environments are a lot different now. We do have a lot of remote work, but we try to foster that culture by having events at the offices and stuff like that, bringing people in. We have our own call center, which is split. It's partially in-house and partially remote.
Hmm.
Uh, our marketing department, same thing. They have offices there, they're in and out, and same with sales training development. So what we try to do is we try to have events, the offices are always open. People are in there working. Sometimes they're home, sometimes they're not. But we also have a common space in the middle of the building with pool tables and air hockey and stuff like that, where, on breaks, people tend to congregate and talk and just,
Right.
get back to that side of it. I know the world's changing quickly and you're seeing more and more people going remote. It's allowing businesses the opportunity to not have to pay for these big facilities anymore. So I understand that, but there's something to that human interaction. We just had an offsite recently with all the FBCs and myself and our head of training, and it was just cool to get into a room, shut the door behind us for 8 hours and work through problems starting at the beginning. Like, all right, let's reimagine this thing ground up.
Yeah.
Where can we find efficiencies? Where can we adapt? Where can we grow? Yeah, we could have done it over Zoom, but it's just different. You
Yeah,
know,
I
there's,
agree.
there's something about being in the room together, your impact when you make a statement about something on Zoom, you're not really getting the response that you know the emotional response from the person in the room. You can see their shoulders slump a little bit more. You can read the room a little bit better too. So we really try to make sure we keep that going. Yeah, it's not on an everyday level anymore. I understand why, but also trying to bring them together for events. Halloween. The call center got very involved and decorated the offices, and did like a potluck that day. We'll do the same thing around Thanksgiving, the week of Christmas, the whole week prior. Every day will be something different. So
Mhm.
it's fun to come into the office and kind of hang out with everybody and be part of that family again. It's important to make sure that that's almost, even though you're still working, it's almost like a decompressed time to get out of
Right.
your home office and get in around people again and talk to them and get that connection. So that's been really critical. On the franchisee side of things, our yearly conference is, everybody refers to it like a family reunion. We're very intentional about how we run things. I've been to conferences where you get out of the end of the day and you're like, I just want to go lay down. It's been intensive. We're very purposeful. We end it at 3 o'clock sharp. We want to make sure we have plenty of time for where a lot of the learning comes is the interactions between each other. It's not always sitting in the classroom listening to somebody speak to you or being at a round table or on a panel. It's hanging out around the bar, sitting outside around a table with a group of people and
Right.
getting insight from them. So on the franchisee side of it, that's huge. And we're looking to double down on that. So we have a yearly conference and we're talking about doing you know, uh, smaller conferences by region throughout the year as well to kind of continue that because everybody gets excited. They get pumped up after a conference and they get home and it starts to dwindle because real life kicks in for them again. So how do we continue that? And
Right.
that's what we're working on now.
Dude, that's awesome. That's such a great idea too, the conferences and whatnot. So I want to go to like the last couple questions here, just as we kind of come to the end. Um, what's next for the brothers? Like, and both in terms of like expansion and innovation, because we're nearing the end of
Yeah,
2025, which is crazy to say. We're going to 2026. What's in terms of expansion and innovation? What's next for you guys?
sure. So we've started the process. We're nearly done with our international arm. So
Okay.
we're all set to move up into Canada next.
Very cool.
Start doing up there. So I'm super excited about that. Kind of got you know, uh, a new breath of fresh air coming in on that one to attack that. So I'm excited. We still have growth in the US to conquer as well, obviously.
Hmm.
So for that side of it, again, like I said, Canada's the first step of an international reach. But beyond that, we are also launching our first proprietary products. We've never
Okay.
had, you know, we've always utilized products that are available to anyone in the industry.
Right.
So we've partnered with a manufacturer that we've had a great relationship with for the last 8 or 9 years, and now have developed our own line of gutter guards. It's a three-tiered system called BroGuard.
Okay.
So there'll be options for all different types of debris and issues that gutters typically face. So we're excited to roll that out, which will be Q1 of 2026.
Okay.
The
Well, very
product
soon.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're well into development at this point. So we're working through all the communications now and the promotional stage of that. So we're excited to get that out. That's a major step. I've talked earlier about one of the things we really strive for is to have an only,
Hmm.
another only. our team, Brothers Gutters, will be the only one that these products are available to. So it separates us from the competition there. So
Right.
that's a big step for us. We're excited.
I love that. Well, good luck with that. That sounds very, very exciting as
Yeah.
well. For the final one, touching on you. So looking back at your journey, do you have like a legacy that you hope to leave for your team, the franchisees, or just the industry as like a whole?
I haven't, it's so funny. I haven't really thought a lot about legacy. I'm just focused on the here and now, and I guess a lot of the stuff that we're putting in place now, the growth that we're looking for, is to setting this up for the next person that steps into this role to take it beyond there. I remember when this role was kind of being prepped for me and talking to Ryan Parsons, who was vacating it, moving into the CEO role of Evive
Mhm.
Brands. I had been talking to him for a while about Canada, and he made the comment like, "I'll leave that for you." And it kind of sat weird for me. I'm like, "What do you mean you'll leave that for me?" But I'm starting to understand it more and more. Like he set up the foundations for me to step in and take it to another level. So I just with anything I do, I want to make sure that when I leave something, I leave it in a better spot than I found it. And those are tough shoes to fill because Ken and Ryan did an incredible job. So it forces you every day to be better and better, and it's not about the idea of being better than somebody. It's about the idea of being better for somebody. So really driving that to make sure that you're setting up that next generation that's coming in for success. We've put a lot of heart into this with the team. I would love nothing more than to be able to sit back in 20 years from now and watch where somebody else takes this thing to and shake my head going, that's incredible. How did they get that there? You know,
Right.
and having been a part of that journey, it's, if it ended tomorrow, I could look back and feel good about the input that I've had through with the teams and what we've been able to accomplish together to get it to where it is now. Obviously, I have no intention of it ending tomorrow. I have
Right.
a lot of push that I still see and a lot that I still want to prove. But yeah, as far as legacy, I think that's it. I just really leaving something behind that continues to allow people that may not have had that business background to come in and give them an opportunity to jump into this world and learn and grow and be accepted, and
Right.
that was probably my biggest fear, or what we call head trash, was I didn't have the college degree in business. And, I came in from a world completely removed from this, yet the ideas I had were widely accepted among the company with open arms. So they fostered an environment that allowed outside thinking, and actually kind of promoted it, which I love. So really driving that, keeping it as a place where people that may not have fit into the typical corporate mold, a
Mhm.
place to get into that world.
I love that, man. The passion in your voice between all this, you make me want to start up a franchise with the brothers at this point. Like I could tell you're very, very passionate with it. Can I like drop your LinkedIn in the comments or whatnot if people ever want to like reach out to you or connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yep, I'll send that over to you.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that in there for there. Danny, it's been such a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, taking the time to just share how you guys do stuff and really give perspective on like what leadership looks like in your specific role. For everyone listening, feel free to connect with Danny on LinkedIn. Great guy. We actually connected on LinkedIn, so he's a very nice guy, and I'm sure if you have any questions on like positions or things like that, or even like franchising, we would love
Yeah.
to help out in that sense. So thank you again, Danny, for everyone listening. Be sure to check out the brothers that just do gutters, see how Danny and his team are reinventing contractor service nationwide. And for everyone listening, appreciate you. Thank you. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Founders Table.
Thanks, Tony.